Hi, welcome to this series of webinars. Today is not the first one and not the last one of a series of about 10 webinars about Geotic Log, mostly Geotic Log anyway. Today we're going to be talking about mostly personalized tables and personalized columns, how to do calculated fields, how to figure out what is the physical name of these columns when you go directly into your Access database or SQL in the background. Just before starting off, I'm just going to say a few words about Geotic. So Geotic was created in 2002 by geologists. So we're still a group of geologists working to design those software. It was created to actually make people use the most of their data, because a lot of people are gathering a lot of data but are actually not using fully their data. It was also there because the regulations were getting stricter, and so they wanted people to comply to the different new regulations. So Geotic has now a series of software. So we have Geotic Field, Geotic Log, Geotic Graph, Geotic CAD, and Geotic Mine. So these are the series of Geotic's products. Okay, so without talking too much about Geotic right now, let's go and jump in directly to the topic of today. So today we're going to be talking, like I said, about personalized tables. Like you probably know, Geotic comes with a series of tables. Okay, in this case, I'm just going to go to DDH. Okay, so by default, Geotic comes with predefined tables, but as you may know, you can create your own tables as well. Another important part about this is to know that if you have drop points type of data, or if you have outcrop types of data, you'll need to create your own tables. There's no predefined tables yet into Geotic Log. Okay, and for those of you who wonder why I do have these kind of strange symbols in there, we don't actually know exactly why it's there right now. It has come after the Geotic Log, Windows 10 update, the update 1803. I don't know, it kind of appeared there, so we have to figure out what it is. But anyway, so don't worry, it's the only place in this software. It doesn't affect anything. It's just kind of weird there, but don't worry about it. Okay. Okay, so let's go into the different personalized tables. Okay, so if you want to create a personalized table, it's fairly easy. So you go into personalized table tab, you click on edit, and then you just press new. I already have a bunch created already. Okay, so let's just do a webinar for this one. Okay, and then you just choose what kind of table it's going to be. So interval has a from to, depth is just a depth, information is mostly for the general information of your drill hole or whatever you're trying to describe. So it's probably going to go into the project tab in here instead of the description tab. Survey monitoring is time related, so you can create different kind of timesheets, for example, or different types of data that are time related. For example, like I said, you can create a timesheets and things like this. And outcrop are obviously for outcrops, so they're not linked to a depth or from to a distance or anything. It's just a code. Okay, so these are the different types of tables that you may be able to create within Geotic. Okay. So once you decide a table, so you have other options that are linked to the type of table you've created. Okay, so for example, if I'm taking an interval type of table, it's going to ask me, do you want to have overlaps or not? Do you want to admit that or not? Like, do you want to have it or not? So you can decide to have this validation or not. Then the other question is, are you going to have some samples in this table? And if you say yes, it's going to ask you, are you going to do QA/QC? Are you going to do average composites in this table? So you just have to choose the right options. Okay. This is fairly new. This only happened in version 8. Well, at the conversion from version 7 to version 8 that you were able to add sampling things into personalized tables. Before it was impossible. Okay, so now if you want to create an historical assay table, you could do it. Okay, so that's a big advantage right now. Okay, next question is the description tab. What does that mean? Description tab just means if it's checked, it's going to go into description. If it's unchecked, it's going to go into your project tab. Okay, so that's what it does. And then the image is if you want to change the logo of your new tab. So for example, if we're doing an assay in this case, it's just going to take the logo assay for this tab. Show name is if you want the name to be shown or just a symbol like this to be shown. Okay, and then you can write a description. If you later on don't know why you've created that table, then you can just write down something. So in this table created for webinar, for example. Okay, so it's just a few notes so that you know later on why you've created that table. Okay, and then you press save. I'm just going to show you other little options. So for example, if you go into outcrops, you have other kind of options. So it's the same thing. Identical codes forbidden instead of having overlaps. Okay, and then you have reference table. So what does reference table mean? Is okay, if for example I'm doing an assay table into that is a type of outcrop, I can link my assay to another table in Geotic log, another personalized table, and then I can just pick up which personalized table it's referencing to. So I have another personalized table called lithology or alteration. Okay, so when I'm going to be logging, there will be a code. It's called code ref, where you can just refer to a code from a different table to be able to link them later on. Okay, so that's something you can do with outcrop. If you're into survey monitoring, well, you don't have as many options. And information, actually, by default, it goes into project, but you can force it to go into description if you want to. Okay, and depth, well, it's the same kind of idea. All right, so that's what we have. Okay, so if we go back to the table I just created, okay, so by default, my webinar personalized table as just description. Okay, because it was an interval, it also has a column called from and to. So if I was going to go here, okay, webinar has arrived. Okay, so I can pick up a random drill hole, and by default, there was a from, a to, a sample number because I said there would be sampling into that table, and a description tab. So if I was going to go back in here, I can create different types of column into that personalized table. Okay, so different types of columns. So there's a long list of columns that you may be able to put in here. Okay, so just to go quickly through them. Okay, so for example, the result. Okay, so the result, this is when you expect a result from a certificate. So you'll be able to import your certificate, and your certificate will recognize your sample number and just assign the results when you import it. Okay, so this is result. A lot of you may ask, why do you have negative result? This is kind of counterintuitive to have negative results. The only really place that I know, the only situation I know you may need this is, for example, if you have a LOI, the lost on ignition, for example, it could get a negative number. Okay, and this is why you do have negative results in here. Okay, most of the projects you don't really need it. You'll probably just go with results. Integer, so just integers, real numbers, so you can have as many decimals as you want. Okay, so. And if we go back to results, you can just write down what kind of thing it is, okay, AU, and then you specify the unit that it's going to be. Okay, so when you import your certificates, it's going to go directly in here. Okay, I'll go through the different types one by one. Some of them I'll go much quicker, but just to give you an idea. Okay, so units, gram tons, for example, how many decimals I want, and then when I'm doing compositing, okay, what do I want to do? Value sum, second weight. Do I have a second weight? And then if I have a second weight, it's going to ask me what is the weight. So this will be linked to a different column, which in this case I don't have another column created. So that's why the pick list is empty. Okay. Maybe you don't want to calculate, or it could be a normalized calculation, depending on what you want to do. Okay. So normally it's weighted on length, but other situation may arise. And then the color code. So if you have created color codes in your dictionary, you can link one of those codes directly to your results. So when you're going to display the result, it's going to show up into this color. And you have the choice between text and background. What that means is if you put text, the text is going to be with that color code. If you select background, the background is going to be with this color code, and the value is going to be written in black over it. Okay, so it's just a different way of displaying your results. Okay, all right. So this is what it does. Okay, So let's go to another one. Okay, if you just put integer, same kind of things, less options, but you see the same elements in here. Real number, again, now you have to specify the decimals. Okay, very important in here, text and memo. A lot of questions about these two. Text is limited to 255 characters, while memo, you can write almost a book with it. Okay, so if you create a column, or what they call it, element in here, if it's just a short text, you can put text. But if you want a description, like a full description, and I don't know, you just want to write a lot of text, just select memo. It's better. Okay. And you don't have any options with these things, right? So, okay, dates. Well, that's fairly straightforward. Yes, no is just a checkbox. So if you want a checkbox for something, let's say that you do want to know if a drill hole made water, for example, you can just say water and yes, no question, and then you can just do this. Okay, the next one is personalized lists. Okay, so again, you can create personalized lists in here in their library, right? So in this case, I just have a few ones created, but you can create as many personalized lists as you want, and then you can link them to a column. Okay, so if I'm doing this, I can say, okay, personalized list, this is going to go, I don't know, sample type, okay? And then in that column, it's going to be a pick list with that personalized list. Okay, so that's personalized list. If I continue, okay, calculated field. I think I'm going to finish with calculated field and negative calculation because these are the most complex one, and I'm going to do it at the end because it's more complex, okay? Let's do dictionary. So all the dictionaries that are found in your library can be used also, okay? So you just select dictionary, and you select which one of these dictionary you want to use, okay? So let's say lithology, okay? So you can do this. Photo. Okay, there's absolutely nothing in here. You just write or name your column, and that's it. Photo is just a link to photos that you may have. Okay, so if you click on photos, it's going to ask you, okay, which photo you want to add into your database, and so on. It's going to put it directly in the right folder in the Windows Explorer windows of Geotic, right? So that's photos. Currency. Currency is basically the same thing as integer, not integer, but real number. It's just that it has a dollar sign beside it, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so it's just to say that you're talking about prices. Angle. Okay, angle, again, you can specify the number of decimals. Angle goes from -90 to 90 degrees. So every time you enter an angle, it's going to do the validation right away. So if you write -95, it's going to prompt you an error, for example. Okay. If you go to azimuth, that's from 0 to 360 degrees. So again, there's some validation going on with this. If you continue, currency calculation, well, it goes with the other bunch of calculation. It's very similar, so I'm going to wait a little bit longer. Concatenation. In this case, well, I didn't create any columns yet. But what you can do is you can say, okay, I'm gonna do this plus this, for example, and then it's gonna concatenate the wording and create a new column with this concatenation. Okay, so you can create like a little formula to concatenate your text. All right, document, it's a little bit like the photos. So you just click on it and then you can have a document that is saved into your folder, Geotic folder, and then every time you click on it, it's going to prompt your document. So for example, if you have handwriting or drawing, like hand drawing of outcrops and things like this, you could actually reference this to your database, and then you can just click on it and then it's going to prompt that document to you, okay? Oops, sorry. Okay, if we continue, coordinates. Okay, coordinates are quite important now that we have outcrops, for example. So you can add coordinates. The important things to know about this is when you click coordinate, it actually creates 3 different columns into your table. One for X, one for Y, and one for Z. So even though it says coordinates, it's not one column, it's going to create the 3 columns at the same time. So the only thing you need to specify is which coordinate systems you want to use for these coordinates. Okay. And finally, summary. Not finally, because we do have the calculations to do afterwards. Summary. Okay, so summary, you can have different dictionaries, so you can, or pick lists. So you choose what it is. Okay, so let's say we just put lithology. We put a pick list for, I don't know, I'm just putting random number or random lists, I mean. Intensity, so this is the wording for intensity. I'm just going to write intensity, okay? And then do you want that intensity to be a pick list or just text that you may write or number? So I can just take another one here called intensity, okay? Well, actually, I'm not going to put intensity here. I'm just going to put shift or whatever. Okay, it doesn't really matter. And then what is the separator? So that's going to be useful if you export your data and you have several elements in there. If you want to filter your data in CSV or something later on, that's the separator that's going to go be like in between each element that you may add. Okay, so semicolon or things like this are fairly common in this case. Okay, here it says title. Okay, so by title, what I mean is this is a summary type of thing. Okay, so if you go in here, let's say we're taking lithology in here. Okay, so you always have title and summary. Okay, so the summary is just like the abbreviated version of what you've selected in here, and the title is the full name. Okay, so it's the same kind of idea. So in this case, do you want also to have a column called title with the full name or not? Okay, so if we do this, okay, I'm just going to show you, I'm just going to call it summary. I'm just going to show you what it does, okay, because it's a little bit different from the other types of columns. All right, so let's go back to our new table in here. Let's say that we're adding a new data, okay, and I was going into summary. So that's the one I'm just doing. So if I double click on summary on that column, you have the same kind of window as when you have your lithology. And then you can pick up your lithology, for example, and the second one was shift which doesn't really make sense in this case, but whatever. Okay, so all right, so let's not put shift. I'm just going to put applied, for example. And then you say, okay, so you will have the code and you will have the full name of it. Okay, so you could have created this for a mineralization or anything, right? So you choose the dictionary and the way you want to display it. Okay, so that's the summary type of table. So basically, you can recreate any of the table from Geotic, like lithology, sublitho, alteration, structure, anyway, mineralization. They are all made with this kind of of setting, right? So that's summary. If we were Okay, so let's go to the calculated field. Okay, currency calculation, negative calculation. Negative calculations was done because it's possible to have negative results, but now the calculated fields are not linked necessarily to results. It could be linked to any other column. That could be numbers or whatever. Okay, so what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to create a few things. I'm just going to say number 1. Okay, save. And then I'm going to create a number 2. Okay, not a result. I want a real number. Number 2. Okay, save, and so on. Okay, so let's create another one that is going to be a calculated field. For those of you who have used Geotic Log for a while, it's the same kind of window as what you were using for the assay title before. Okay, so same kind of idea. Okay, so element. So maybe this is our AU final. Maybe I should have put the results in here instead, or it could be anything really. You don't have to specify units. Okay, so you can just say gram tons, and then calculation. So that's going to give you that window where you have tons of options. What's important to know is whatever tabs that you're selecting in here, that's the one that is going to be used for your calculation. So if I'm staying in here, even though there's other things filled in the other tabs, it's not going to use it. It's just going to take this simple average one in here. Okay. Okay, so let's take simple calculation. Simple calculation, you can do, for example, if you want to calculate the length, you can just do 2 minus from, and then you can just create a new column and you just recreated the length. Okay, so that's what it does. Okay, you have other little options in here. Evaluate empty values as 0. So if there's nothing into your cell, it's just going to assume it's a 0. And all the allowed codes that are found into the library are also in here. Okay, so you can actually ignore some allowed codes. So for example, you don't want your smaller than 5 to be replaced by 2.5. You just want to have an error or something. Okay, or you can just do not evaluate the allowed codes at all. Okay, so that's another option. Okay, so that's for a simple calculation, fairly simple. If we go into conditional calculation, then you can do like sort of a formula. So it's a if formula. So if this happens, then this. Otherwise, do this. So fairly simple. You can pick up like if number 1 is bigger than number 2, then put number 1. Otherwise, put, I don't know, just put a number. Okay, let's say 6. All right. So you can create your own little formula in here, and you have some tools to help you do it. Okay. If you go to simple average, so for example, I can just select number 1 and number 2. It's going to ask you for a factor. Okay, and then you can just add a conversion factor. So that was used mostly for analysis. Okay, so for example, if you had a gravimetric assay and fire assay, but they were in different units, you could actually make an average with them by assigning a factor so that they would use the same units. Okay, so that's what you do. You add the 2, and then if I was going to go into my calculated field, it would just do the average of the 2. Simple. Okay. Priority average. Priority average is quite important, specifically for those who have gravimetric assay, fire assay, check assays, and whatever. Okay, so the same sample can be analyzed several times with different methods, and then you can prioritize which one to use as your final goal for your calculations later on. Okay, so if I was, you can just put priority 1, 2, 3, or 4, and then it's going to go in 1 and say, okay, do I have something there? No, there's no value. I'm going to take priority 2. No, there's nothing. I'm going to go to priority 3, and so on. If you put several elements, let's say I was going to do 1 and 1 in here. what it would do, it would actually do an average of the two results in here. It's just kind of a simple average. Okay, so this could be in priority 2, 3, or 4, depending on what you do. Okay, so if you have a check assay 1, check assay 2, you can do the average of the two, for example. Okay. If we go now to the advanced calculation, oh gosh, this is the beast. You can do pretty much all you want in here. Okay, so you could make your own formula. You can use the functions that are already in here. Okay, so you can calculate what is the maximum. If you want to calculate the square root of something, you can put ifs, and you can do embedded ifs formula if you wanted to. There's no limits of what you can do with this. Okay, there's a lot of things in here that you can actually work on. Okay, so if we're just gonna use a little one, you can also change the format. So within format, there's a lot of options also. Okay, so if you go into the help menu, there's a list of everything you can do in your calculated field. Okay, so if you go into the advanced calculation, okay, everything is in here and it tells you what it does. Okay, so let's say for the functions, it tells you every function what it does. Okay, so for example, if we were going to do AVG, this is return the simple average of the values. If one of the values is null empty, the calculation will be interrupted. Okay, and it gives you some example of what would be the result, and an example and a result. Okay, you can also change the format. So for example, the time format, if you have a date, for example, you can do some calculation and just return which day of the date it is, which month it is from your date. You can actually just extract some information from your date. It's possible using these time format. And similarly, you can have number format where you can change the number of digits you may have. If you want to change it to a monetary value and just add a dollar sign in front of it, it's possible. If you want to go into hexadecimal value, it's possible as well. Change things from decimals to percentages, it's possible. So there's tons of options. I really encourage you to go and explore the help menu to help you out. I'm not going to go through all of them because there's way too many, and I would be here for like another 2 hours, so I'm just going to stop here. But just know that it's possible to do your own calculations. Okay, so depending on what you've set up, okay, you can also add an element for the preview in here. Okay, and these elements for preview are, you choose basically one column that you want to display in the preview in Geotic log. So that's what it does. Okay, and the certificate one, it's only available if you've selected a table that has samples, is because nowadays you can, in your assay, you can add another column with your certificate number that is linked to one of your result in your table. Okay, so that's what it does. So only one result, because the same sample number could have been used by several methods, and then we need to know which one you want to have the certificate number, because it could be different methods, right? So that's kind of cover up the personalized tables section. I know there's a lot to it. There's a lot of options. You just need to play around a little bit with it. If I'm going here, I can just show you quickly some example of other tables I've created. So for example, if you have a coordinate one, it's going to create different columns. You can create structure things with angles, for example, depth. So you can just make some different calculation, and then these are all codes made with advanced calculations. Okay, you can also create other tables right into your project if you don't click the description tab. So for example, here you can just make your timesheet, so you have the date. So this is a time related table. Okay, and then you can just add different columns. So if I was going to add things in here, so you can just add a shift and so on, and drill number and so on and so on. Okay. I'm not sure this would be the best place to put this. I would actually put it in the description tab, because once you are in the project tab, one thing you need to know is you cannot, okay, I'm just writing fake data here, is you can only add one row. So once this one is filled, you won't be able to do anything else. Okay, so that's one thing to remember. If you do not put it in the description tab, you can only do one row of data. Okay, so for example, here I created another table because the information table was not complete and I wanted more things. So I've put it in here, but again, there's no option for the plus to add a second row. So that's something that is related to that data type for that survey. Okay, so that's something to remember. So that's pretty much it for it. Don't forget, if you do calculated fields, you may want to prepare a little calculator to have them recalculate your things. And if you want to do it for the whole database, just go into the utilities and just press calculated fields. It's going to populate the whole thing. It's just going to recalculate everything. Okay. So that's pretty much it for today. It has been more than half an hour already, so I'm going to be ready to answer any questions that are related to this topic. And don't forget that we do have other webinars coming up, so I encourage you to assist or to listen to them. So that's pretty much it. So I'm open to questions, and have a good day otherwise.